In Europe, another government says it faces a threat from Russia. We're talking about Moldova. Their president has warned of a Russian plot, a plot to topple her government and install a puppet regime. Quick primer. Moldova is a former Soviet state. It borders Ukraine. Along with Ukraine, it hopes to join the EU. It has taken a lot of Ukrainian refugees and doesn't support Putin's war. Now Moldova says Russia wants to install a government that supports the Kremlin. On what basis is the president making these charges? On the basis of intelligence sent by Kiev. Ukrainian President Zelensky spoke about this in Europe last week. Needless to say, Russia has denied it. It says Moldova is going the Ukraine way, drumming up Russophobia to align with the West. Our next report decodes the latest crisis in Europe.
Moldova's president, Maia Sandu, has warned of a Russian plot, a plot to destabilize the country and install a pro-Moscow regime. She described the details based on the intelligence shared by Ukraine.
The plan for the next period involves actions involving saboteurs with military training, people dressed in civilian clothes who would undertake violent actions, attack government buildings and take hostages. By organizing violent actions disguised as protests of the so-called opposition, a change of power in Moldova is being pursued.
What she described is right out of Russia's playbook. Russia was accused of using similar tactics in Ukraine in 2014. The breakaway regions of Donetsk and Luhansk saw protests, violence, and then pro-Russia officials were installed. Now, Moldova fears the same. What could be the reasons behind this plot? Sandu says Russia has two motives.
The purpose of these actions is to overthrow the constitutional order, change the legitimate government in Moldova to an illegal one, which would put our country at the service of Russia, in order to stop the process of European integration, but also so that Moldova can be used by Russia in its war against Ukraine.
What's the basis of these charges? Intel from Ukraine. Is there any other proof? US officials were asked about this on Monday. This is what the White House's national security spokesperson had to say.
I know of no independent confirmation, but we're certainly not questioning the capacity, the will of the Russians and Mr. Putin to try to do that. It's perfectly right, a page right out of his playbook.
But why would Russia be targeting Moldova? The answer lies in its geography and history. Moldova neighbors Ukraine. Its location could make it a staging ground for Russia's forces. Russia could use it the way it uses Belarus, that's another neighbor of Ukraine, and it's pro-Russia. With Moldova in its fold, Russia could potentially attack from another direction. Moldova already has a pro-Moscow breakaway territory, Transnistria. The region houses some 1,500 Russian troops who serve as peacekeepers. With a puppet regime in Moldova, this area too could be put to use. And why would Russia oppose Moldova's European integration? That's where history and geopolitics come in. You see, like Ukraine, Moldova was a former Soviet republic. The region was part of the Russian Empire from 1812. But it has also broken away from Russia at various times in its history. Moldova has been unified with Romania more than once. But it was regularly brought back into the Russian fold. It became an independent nation in 1991 with the fall of the USSR. But as soon as it achieved independence, the Transnistria conflict began. Russia helped secure a ceasefire and has had a toehold in the region since. Moscow has always wanted to maintain its presence in the former Soviet sphere of influence. So any move that brings Moldova closer to Europe goes against Russia's plans. Which brings us to present day. Like Ukraine's Zelensky, Moldova's Sandu is pro-Europe. This is how Russia's foreign minister described her recently.
Moldova is being looked at for this role of the next Ukraine. First of all, because they were able to put, by quite specific, far from free democratic methods, a president as the head of the country who is simply striving to join NATO. She has Romanian citizenship, she is ready to unite with Romania, and is generally ready for almost anything.
Reunification with Romania would greatly help Moldova, which is among the poorest European nations. But if this happens, Russia would permanently lose a former Soviet state to the EU. Even if reunification doesn't happen, Moldova's EU candidacy was confirmed last year. Under the current government, it seems Moldova will definitely move towards the West. So it makes sense for Russia to want a regime change. That doesn't mean Russia is pushing for it. Russia has denied the charges and lashed out at Moldova.
The process of transformation of Moldova, a sovereign country with its own traditions, goals, and objectives, into another Ukraine is not just ongoing, but is gaining momentum.
Moldova has been facing turmoil since the war in Ukraine began. Its prime minister resigned last week. It faces regular protests over the cost of living crisis. Now, President Sandu has found the perfect excuse. She's blaming Russia for the instability. But will it be enough to pacify Moldovan citizens who have to deal with all the chaos?